This is the thing that kind of shocks me. They're coming to the realization that Homelander is the bad guy, which is like, how did you not know that from like season 1, episode 1? I feel like it's pretty obvious, like he's the villain, like right off the bat. But I guess there's been this segment, this contingent of the viewership that for whatever reason views Homelander as a heroic figure. I'm just like, I just don't get it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to my review, my impressions so far of The Boys season 4. You know, I've only seen the first 3 episodes. I don't know if, you know, all those big critics out there got more episodes. Probably not. Probably got like 3 or 4 or got these episodes early. But for right now, I've only seen 3. And I'm just going to share my impressions on them so far, what I like, what I dislike. Eventually, once the full series is out and once I've watched every episode, I'll do a full season 4 review, of course, with more context and things, and let you know my full thoughts on this particular season. But just for right now, just giving you my overall impression. So again, my opinion might change over time for this particular season. However, you know, like many people, you know, I am a big fan of the first several seasons of The Boys. You know, the television adaptation, in my opinion, is far superior to the original comic book written by Garth Ennis. You know, at least what I read of it, which, to be fair, was the first volume. And again, I didn't care for it at all. It was just edgy for the sake of being edgy. It was depraved for the sake of being depraved. I felt like it lacked a lot of the subtext, which the show has excelled at showcasing. You know, they made the absolutely great choice of changing many things from the comics, you know, for this particular adaptation. You know, with the main plot lines, the various subplots, I would say, many of the characters, and just changing many of them along the way. You know, I've liked that, and I've also enjoyed, you know, their spinoffs so far with their animated anthology series. I think it was just called The Boys Diabolical. I enjoyed that. Like with any anthology series, you know, there's going to be episodes you really like, some episodes you're mixed on, some episodes you don't like, and that was very much the case with that particular animated series. But it was cool that they chose to do something like that. I think that's fun. I welcome more anthology shows to showcase, you know, different writers and animators and all different styles. I think that's really cool. But also, I ended up really enjoying Gen V as well. I know people are kind of trepidatious about that particular spinoff, and I was a little like kind of worried too, but I ended up really enjoying it for the most part. Thought the characters were great. Thought the main story was wonderful, and it just kind of expanded the world of The Boys. It didn't feel like a spinoff that just to keep the property in the pop culture zeitgeist. It felt like they had a story to tell, and I like many of the characters, and I'm excited to see them return, obviously for a second season. And I know some of the characters from that show are also going to be featured in this season as well. I know that they recently had a terrible tragedy, and they're just probably addressing that right now, and it will continue at some point. But I am looking forward to season 2, despite the sad circumstances. But, you know, again, along with, you know, Gen V, you know, the first 3 seasons of The Boys, you know, they featured excellent writing, plot lines, characters, and acting, I think, for the most part. You know, some notable standout characters, you know, include, obviously, Anthony Starr's, you know, Homelander, and Carl Urban's Billy Butcher. But again, the majority of the cast and supporting cast, I think, are great throughout this series, too. The series, I think, also acts just as a wonderful palate cleanser to a lot of superhero fare that's out there. You know, it's incredibly graphically violent. It features a lot of sexual content, but it's also this really biting satire that not only comments on the comic book medium itself, but also things going on in our media-dominated culture and politics, the political sphere. You know, and I think it mostly succeeds at these things while providing us with some very tense scenes with these crazy characters, and it's also very funny as well. I think we should absolutely highlight that. It has a lot of laughs despite how violent, intense it can get throughout, you know, these episodes. And listen, you know, to be fair, you know, there are some plot lines that are not as interesting as others, or feel like they may just be tertiary to what is going on and they don't play like as big a role in the story as we want them to. And again, along with everything else I mentioned, I think all this can be seen in season 4 of The Boys so far. But before getting into more specific details, let me provide you with a synopsis to The Boys season 4 so far. As Homelander attempts to leave a legacy for his son while dealing with his deteriorating mental state, The Boys attempt to take down Victoria Neuman, who has her eyes set on the presidency of the United States. So let's get to the positives first so far. One of the plot lines that I've really enjoyed revolves around Butcher, Carl Urban's Butcher. Now, this is a Butcher at his lowest, which is saying something because, this character who has, charisma just coming out of every orifice, with each season that we've seen, now he's at a point where he is extraordinarily regretful for a lot of his actions. Having taken Compound V, risked his health to the point where he has a limited amount of time to actually live. He feels guilty about certain things. He feels bad about pushing so many people away because he's almost at his end. And I like how they initially show off Butcher in this, where he's a complete fucking mess right at the start. More so than usual. Usually he has the kind of that faux, confidence at first. And that kind of demeanor that makes it like always kind of playing off and saying like, it's okay, everything's going fine, don't worry about it, shut the fuck up, you're being a pussy, etc. Like here, that persona, that faux persona is not cracking, it's cracked at this point. Like, he's an absolute mess, throwing up, sweating half the time. A lot of the boys aren't taking him seriously. He's not even the leader of the boys at this point. He tries to exert some control, but inevitably he fails. He's outvoted because of how he's presenting himself. And so I like seeing this take on Butcher, so far, and how he's even dealing with a deteriorating mental state as well. A lot of people say his mental state's been deteriorating ever since episode 1 of season 1, but now it's even more so. They've added an extra element into it, which is expanding upon his guilt, which all of it kind of centers around at this point, even though he has a guilty conscience in regards to some members of the team and how he's treated them and how they continue to treat him, despite him maybe not always being that truthful. The thing that he's most racked with, at least for these first 3 episodes, is everything to do with Ryan. He wants to make amends with this kid who is, again, not his son, but might as well be. It's the son of his wife and Homelander. But he wants to have his last act to save this kid, to provide him with a better life. And in these first couple episodes, I think they do I think for the first time in probably a long time, Butcher is being more honest with this character of Ryan than he has been with many other people, because his time is running short. And I think some of the best dramatic and emotional moments revolve around those two characters interacting with one another. I really like what they're doing with Butcher this season, because it seems like so much of his story is actually coming to an end. It has to come to an end at this point. And so after these 3 episodes, that's been probably my top 2 favorite storylines going on right now. Of course, the second one, and this comes at no surprise, everything to do with Homelander is always so interesting. Homelander is increasingly unhinged. His relationship with his son Ryan is falling apart. He's trying to just make another copy of himself, a superior copy in a way, but he is so wrapped up in his own ego and his various insecurities, because he can't even allow himself to do that, to have his son rise higher than himself. And he's always trying to instill these just horrific things in his son's mind in terms of how he should view humanity or the world, and trying to acclimate him to this lifestyle that Homelander has had for decades now, which is incredibly unhealthy. And his son, consistently rejecting that and feeling uncomfortable about that, and still wanting to have a connection to Butcher despite everything that happened. Homelander's just continuing to lose it, and I love it. Like it's always been since season 1. Anytime Homelander steps into a room with a bunch of characters, you're instantly nervous because it's like, is something going to set him off? Is someone going to say like a certain thing that will make him threaten them, or make just the temperature drop to zero in the room? That's still consistent, and it's still really, really interesting. But because so much of his world is seemingly falling apart, this has caused him to realize, like, okay, in my effort to seize control of Vought, which he has now at this point for the most part, he has completely surrounded himself with people that are always afraid of him and are sycophants. I mean, everyone's a sycophant. Like, I think like the first episode, it delves right into that, showing that. Like, now he's just kind of poking and prodding people to the point where he's just like, I want to see if I can make these people who are obviously afraid of me do whatever I want. And there's this one sequence between the Deep and A-Train that kind of showcases that perfectly. But this has led him, despite his ego, to seek out other people who would challenge him, or to find people, even though he would never want to admit it, who are probably smarter than him. And we get to some of the newer characters so far in the season, which I really like. I think one of the standouts so far this season in terms of a new character is Sage, or Sister Sage, as she is sometimes called, or doesn't like that, who's played by Susan Hayward. Now, I'm unfamiliar with this actress, but what she's doing here, I think, is quite interesting. She is the smartest person in the world. A lot of people say she's the smartest woman in the world. She's like, no, I'm not just the smartest woman. I'm the smartest person. And her whole thing is she's just obsessed with social experimentation and manipulation. Homelander seeks her out because he needs someone he needs someone with original and clever ideas, but also someone to disagree with him in case something's just not going right. And I really like that. She's a nice foil to his character. Like, he tolerates her presence despite her talking back to him and telling him, like, no, you're wrong. You can't do it this way. You need to approach it this way. And she's like one of the more interesting threats, I think, that's been introduced to the boys, so far. We don't know too much about, like, what her end goal motivation is. I mean, when we first meet her, she's kind of like this recluse living in an apartment just completely surrounded by books, as Homelander says, just reeking of Taco Bell. But, her intelligence is on full display, and I want to know eventually what her end game is. But in terms of the sequence that she's got, like, she holds her own against Anthony Starr's Homelander. I think she's really good. She gets some great comedic moments, especially with, like, the Deep, like, everyone does, And I really like her so far. Eventually, I want to learn more about why she's the way she is, and they kind of set that up. But at the moment, I think she's great, and she's one of the best additions so far to the cast this season. We also have another soup character introduced, Firecracker, played by Valerie Curry, and she's pretty much what I would describe as the female Alex Jones. She represents all of QAnon, like all those super alt-right wing groups that are just come up with these ridiculous conspiracy theories. I mean, they cover all that, from Jewish space lasers to pedophile rings controlled by liberal Democrats. Like, they go into all that with her. But she also has this motivation that is more personal and connected to Starlight. They also paint, Starlight in a different light. But because of these traumatic experiences that she's experienced when she was younger, and again, some of that has to do with Starlight, it's kind of morphed her. She's like, well, I had this one outlet where I could have pursued, like, this pageant career and been like, your typical prototypical soup, but because of different circumstances, she had to go in this direction. In her own mind, she feels justified in going this direction to promote herself and to give people meaning in life. It's this, and again, it's this weird justification that we've heard for some people online. It's like, there's a reason why I'm doing this. I'm pointing people in this direction because they have nothing. And again, it just shows how manipulative, and it's cool how they're deconstructing, again, these things that we just constantly see online in our social media feeds, and they're all personified, I feel like, in her character. I want to see more of her. She's kind of introduced in episode 2, I want to say, episode 2. And so eventually see more in her relationship with Starlight expand throughout the season. But in terms of the new members of the 7, I really like what they're doing with them and what they represent, from our own world. But again, that's not to say that like some of the original characters aren't great, either. A-Train, I think, gets a much more expanded role this season. He's a lot more complicated this time around. And I think he always has been, but here, again, played by Jesse T. Usher, I think this is his absolute best role so far. He has shown significant growth. He is probably more regretful than ever for his variety of choices. And I don't want to say too much about like what he's specifically doing in relation to the boys, but his role, I think, is going to get further complicated down the line based on what he seems to keep doing over and over again. And I'm really liking what they're doing with him so far. I think they're going to continue to expand on him. And again, listen, all the social and political allegories, I mean, they're wearing them on their sleeves. We all know what they're talking about. A lot of the criticism is directed at, Donald Trump. I mean, that's what Homelander's whole trial is after the murder of that one person who threw like an empty water bottle at him and his son. Ends up killing that random person, and that person is then framed as, what do you think, Chad? As a liberal pedophile, and he's going to trial. And you have people on various sides of the political spectrum. One is the home, I think I forget what they call them, but like the Patriots, the Homelanders who are cheering him on. Then you have all the Starlighters who represent the liberals who are very critical of Trump. And we see both of that and how that plays out in these like mass protests and things. Again, as I mentioned before, everything with Firecracker and her truth bomb. That's her whole shtick. Her website, her brand is Truth Bomb, and so you see that. That's representative of QAnon. And then you just continue to see that corporate sleaze, that phoniness, that persists through this entire series. Like showing it, like how the soups aren't really superhero. Like so much of their saves, it's staged. It's performance art. It's marketing. We see more of that. We see more of how the sausage is made from the perspective of Ryan, who has to do all these things to appease his father. And I really liked how they're handling a number of the socio-political aspects. I think they've always done like a really good job, from the previous seasons. Now, I think you have a lot of people recently who are, I guess, coming to the this is the thing that kind of shocks me. They're coming to the realization that Homelander is the bad guy, which is like, how did you not know that from like season 1, episode 1? I feel like it's pretty obvious, like he's the villain, like right off the bat. But I guess there's been this segment, this contingent of the viewership that for whatever reason views Homelander as a heroic figure. I'm just like, I just don't get it. It's like, have you just not been paying attention? I mean, even the showrunners have come out and said that, yeah, we just don't understand. I mean, everything that we've done, he's clearly been shown to be a piece of shit, a villain. I mean, yeah, he was made into this, but now he's making his own choices. And so it's so bizarre that people just weren't able to discern that on their own, like immediately. Like, I don't get it. Again, they're just so lost in their warped point of view. They can't just see the obvious, even though it's clearly spelled out for them. So I know that there's been a backlash of sorts towards the series because of what it's been doing, I guess, for all these years, for 4 seasons, plus a new spinoff and an animated spinoff, and I guess they just had that realization, and I'm like, okay, I mean, yeah, I think that's on you, that's on them. It's so ridiculous. I can't believe it. And people that are angry that the show has been making fun of you the entire time. I mean, again, I feel like that's on those people. But in any case, at the very least, it's humorous, and but on one hand, it's also very disturbing that they just had no idea. It really says a lot about our own world right now, and how important a show like The Boys is for that political, social satire and commentary, which again, I feel like it excels more than it doesn't. Now, that's not to say that the show doesn't have problems. Again, like previous seasons. And this was also present in season 3, but perhaps now it's a little more noticeable just because it's like, okay, you're still kind of doing this. There are some plot lines that aren't just personally like working for me all that much. And I hate to harp on them because I feel like these characters are good and these actors are doing a great job. But Frenchie's storyline and Kimiko's storyline, I just feel like they're kind of underdeveloped and in some cases repetitive. So again, I could be just completely wrong and just again, it's been a while since I've watched season 3. But I thought they were kind of having Kimiko and Frenchie come together eventually as a couple, a very complicated couple, no doubt about that, but they're eventually building towards something. And maybe I missed something in that 3rd season that I didn't pick up on. But I guess in the 3rd season, they've established that they are very much not together. They're very good friends, but they are not lovers. They're, Kimiko has said, like, I love you, but not in that way. And Frenchie's like, cool, that's totally fine. And so maybe I missed something. So maybe that's on me. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't know. It just felt like a big surprise. I thought they were building towards the relationship. Instead, in terms of Frenchie, he has a whole like subplot where he is in love with this man who works for Starlight's new Starlighter like organization, which is to, that organization is to showcase Vought's, corporate manipulation and their lies and everything that, Homelander like represents in his trial like that. That's what he is in a romantic kind of off and on again relationship with this campaigner, which apparently he has a deeper connection to this person's family. Which revolves around something happened to his mother and father and siblings. And I don't know if it was from an earlier season. I can't remember for the life of me. I was like, is this before? And so again, that might be on me, but at the same time, it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. And then with Kimiko is, again, she's still traumatized by her childhood and everything. And I guess she's just on this path of vengeance now against the organization that kidnapped her and her brother, and I guess they're back now in New York City, and they have this underground, child fighting ring for like children who've been pumped full of Compound V and given superpowers, and she's on that quest, I guess, and I don't know, I just felt. No, I guess not that like her storyline was like wrapped up with that. I mean, a lot of that I felt that was ground covered with her brother. I just felt most of that was addressed, and now we just seem to going back into that again. It was just weird to me that her relationship with Frenchie seemed to be abandoned. Because I felt like they were bringing out the best of each other when they were together, whether it was with, Frenchie and his past and his drug abuse, his substance abuse problems, and Kimiko and everything to do with her family and childhood trauma. I felt like they were bonding together. And, a lot of that just feels like it was kind of drop for these two plot lines, which, to be perfectly honest, I just don't have a lot of interest in. Maybe they'll get interesting as the season goes along, but I'm just like, these aren't really hitting me. I kind of feel like, all right, can we get to the next storyline? Can we go back to the boys, their latest, mission, or whatever the hell Homelander's doing, or what Sister Sage is doing, or Butcher and him bonding with Ryan and him trying to be a better person, like truly for the first time in a long time because of those regrets. Like, I feel like that was just more interesting. There's an additional plot line they've introduced here, which revolves around Huey, which again, I think Jack Quaid is a great actor. Obviously you're in The Boys. He's an excellent Superman, Adventures of Superman. He's so good. He just has the right voice for it, the right attitude for it. And I continue to like Huey, obviously. But he's been given a subplot himself, and it revolves around the return of his mother, who, again, in case you don't know, it's established in prior seasons that he's mostly been raised by his dad, played by Simon Pegg, who does return for this particular season under certain circumstances. I won't say too much because it is kind of a bit of a surprise in episode 1. But something happens to Huey's father. The mother comes back in, and I guess they're just kind of bringing up about a lot of like Huey's abandonment issues, justifiable, obviously, with his mother leaving him when he was 6 years old. Him and his father, and they kind of go into that. And so far, I'm like, okay, I feel like there's more to this story. I think there's gotta be. There's got to be, because there's a certain connection the mom has to a organization. I'm like, well, that's going to come into into play at one point. And even though this story is like, oh, it could potentially be good for Huey closing this door, and with his childhood trauma, there has to be more to it. But so far, I just feel like, all right. I mean, we kind of covered this, and like his being abandoned was already covered in previous seasons. Like, what are you gonna bring to his arc by having his mom come back? Like, I'm curious, and that hasn't really been established yet. It's too early, so I'm gonna hold off on that one because I want to see where it goes. But again, the one with Frenchie and Kimiko right now, their respective subplots are just not really grabbing me. Huey, I'll wait on. I think there's possibly more at play. And then the last thing I'll say, and again, this is something I think it's been a complaint for a lot of people. I'm back and forth on it, and it revolves around the Deep. The Deep is a very funny character, obviously a parody of Aquaman. Chase Crawford plays. He's done a great job playing this idiot, right? But it's gotten to a point where he's gotten so dumb that I feel like he must struggle to even breathe sometimes. Like, he forgets to breathe air. That's how dumb he's gotten. And I've liked his story. It's always been an amusing distraction anytime he's popped back up into the series. But now we're at a point where I just feel like he just feels so one note. He just feels so one note to me, where as so many other members of the Seven, whether Homelander is interesting, Sage is interesting. I think what they could establish with Firecracker is interesting. I've always liked what they did with Maeve back in the day. That was great. Noir was interesting. They do something new with Noir, which I think is amusing, but at the same time, I'm kind of concerned it could turn into almost like a Deep situation where it's like this one note gag, and I hope there eventually is more to it. Obviously. Oh, and then in case I forgot to mention, and A-Train. I think A-Train is interesting as well. But yeah, with the Deep, it's just like, okay, you're just kind of doing the same thing, and I'm like, are you gonna do anything new with this character? There's a funny gag involving there's a funny gag involving Octopus. Octopus is voiced by a notable actress. But I'm like, where are we going with this character other than just, we're going to cut to them for, all right, well, you just saw something that's really traumatic and was really graphically violent, or that was a heavy scene. Hey, let's cut to the Deep for a quick laugh. Like, that's just feel like he's become now at this point. And again, I think Chase Crawford is doing a great job for what he's given, but I don't know. I just want him to have more of an arc instead of just being the joke at this point. Now, despite all that, like, I'm still really enjoying these. I really enjoyed these first 3 episodes. I'm still interested to obviously watch this show. I think it's good that they're wrapping everything up with season 5. I think they've stated that season 5 is going to be the last season of The Boys, even though they're going to have other spinoffs, Gen V, or who knows? Actually, I don't know now with the situation there, but we'll find out. And I guess there's another a potential spinoff, and I don't know if it's greenlit yet, but The Boys Mexico, that's another storyline they want to do. So we'll see. But I think it's probably best. It feels like we're getting to that point where, like, with some of these characters possibly exiting the show or dying, clearly the case of Billy Butcher, Homelander continuing to spiral out of control, losing, even though he feels like he's had more control ever, he doesn't feel like he has control of it in any capacity. Like, all right, we're getting towards the end now, which I think is cool, and I hope they can wrap it up in a really satisfying fashion. But yeah, so far the first 3 episodes, I think they're good. I think they're very good in some cases. And there's some great, and there's other characters I still haven't brought up. There's some surprises I don't even want to mention. I was like, oh my God. Like, there's still moments where it's like, oh God, where it's so gross and so graphic and crazy. And they cushion all those things with some really great dramatic scenes and some wonderful exchanges and some really, even wholesome moments between characters. But it feels like we're getting towards the end now, and I think that's for the best. So yeah, I'm enjoying the show. I think these first episodes were good, very good. They do have some flaws, and I'm hoping some of these subplots they're improved upon. They're at least something interesting happens with them. But inevitably, we'll see. I'll do a full season 4 review once I believe this is an 8-episode season. Yeah, like all the past ones. So once the other 5 episodes are out in the next couple of weeks, next 5 weeks, I'll do a full season 4 review, and I can share my thoughts on that and let you know if any of these weaknesses, any of these weaker plot lines improved. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts so far on The Boys season 4. But what about you guys out there? I'm actually very curious. Have you been a fan of The Boys adaptation? What do you think of the season so far? Do you really like it? Are you kind of more mixed on it? Or are you more negative? Do you not care for it? Are you disappointed that apparently Homelander is the bad guy? Which some people apparently had no idea about. Let me know.
5 minutes later.
Again, he's a dumb version of Aquaman. He really is. Can't believe the Deep was. I'm kind of shocked too. I'm thinking like Homelander every time he interacts with the Deep is like, I want to kill you so fucking bad. Like every time. So he's Thor now. Even Thor at his dumbest still has these moments where he can be dramatic. He can be emotional. Like I like Thor: Love and Thunder. But even in that movie, like there are moments where like he has that last conversation with Gore towards the end about, choosing like his choice in regards to like what he wants in terms of the gods or saving his daughter, which I think is really good. He like there are still moments like that for Thor. There aren't really moments like that for the Deep. It's all part of the gag. It's all part of the joke. Like, there's never a moment, at least so far this season, with him that's like, oh, that's a really good dramatic moment where he's again either getting. I mean, he's going to be what he's going to be. If this is how it is, he's just going to be the joke, the gag character, he's the fish fucker. Yeah, that's it. But like with Thor, they still have those moments, and there just hasn't been a moment with Deep like that. Even if you can perceive like there's a new romance with him, and it's like, okay, it's like what he's doing in that scene is good, but at the same time, it's still meant to get a laugh out of folks. Let's see. I saw that and I was like, I can't believe she morphed again. What they do with Butcher, at least in the first 3 episodes, I like that. Yes. It almost reminded me of Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2 because obviously Arthur wanted to be a better person. And now we see Butcher trying to be more of the heroic type. It's going to be better with the time he's got left. Like 100%. I agree. That's I think one of the one of two the strongest aspects of this particular season so far. I think having 7 seasons would have fit for the 7. Yeah. I'm just glad he's not stretching something that shouldn't last long for 50 seasons. Again, yes. That's true. Is Negan still? Yes, Negan, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So he's in the show. He's not in it as much as I think maybe some people are expecting him to, at least so far. He is, I'll tell you exactly what he is. He's a CIA agent. That much the same way as the boys, he works operations against the Supes. He has a clearly a friendship of sorts, a personal connection to Butcher. That it's mostly, it's just been them on screen together. I don't think Jeffrey Dean Morgan has had another scene with like another actor, if I recall. It's just been him and Butcher, and these are great. Like these two guys like have chemistry. You get a sense like they've had this long relationship for many years. He's not, at least, he's definitely, like, Butcher is in a point in his life where he's really regretful and realizes he's made a lot of poor choices and it's affected his relationships, and he doesn't want at least this last relationship with Ryan to deteriorate to the point where he has nothing. He wants the best for that kid at this point, at least in these first 3 episodes, whereas Jeffrey Dean Morgan's like, fuck it. Yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he is very much a company man. He is an agent through and through. He's like, listen, man, I love joking and shit like that, but you got to get the job fucking done. It's like either we're gonna. What's going to happen is either you're going to get this kid on our side or we're going to have to come up with a situation where we're going to have to kill him. It's going to be one of the two. That's just how this is. He's very much that kind of guy, right? A little bit of lean to him, not as much lean as you would expect. But, that's his role so far. I'm sure they'll do more with him, this season, but that's the extent of it at this point. Dill Murray. Good evening to you, Dill Murray. I'm still enjoying it, but Ryan's voice is throwing me off. Oh, really? Nothing really threw me off about his voice. Is he dubbed or something? I thought the Deep should be hit by a bus while crossing. I think his death will be something like that. I wouldn't be shocked. It'll be a joke. Maybe he'll have this moment where he finally realizes like what he's been and makes a concerted effort to be better, and that's when he'll die. And no one will know. I feel like that's when it'll happen. We'll see. There's all these underwater guys and fucking fish. Peacemaker, yep. Oh, let's see. I don't think he's real. Jeffrey Dean, where you don't think he's a real person? He's gonna catch sea AIDS. Yeah, I mean, at this point, he is fucking so many different fish. I mean, he has a girlfriend in the show right now. He has a new woman at this point. I won't say too much about it. There's a nice little surprise. It's like, is that who I think it is? And it's like, yep. I think it's pretty fun. Gonna catch sea AIDS, but yeah, at this point, yeah, wouldn't be surprised. This is between Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Carl Urban, really good. Yeah, no, the dialogue between them is great. Like their interactions, they have all that chemistry, 100%. He's just gonna forget to breathe one day. He's kind of at that point right now. It's like, he's gonna die. We'll see. Yeah, again, he's good. That's the thing. And like, I'm not criticizing the actor at all. I think everything he's doing in terms of like what he's been given, he's nailing it. He's nailing it. It's just now the character's he's just been a gag. That's all he is. It's a fun gag, but that's all it is at this point. You think Sage will experiment? Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, Sage, again, Sage is one of those new cool standout characters. I really like what they're doing with her. There's this one sequence, I think it's in the last episode. It's in the last episode. It's episode 3. Where they have a conversation, and it's like, why is she acting this way? And then you see something, it's like, oh, that's why, which I think is very interesting. So 100%. Sage is a social experimenter, because I'm thinking like there has to be more to her, because she is the smartest person on the planet. You know, she is an expert at manipulation. She's an expert at breaking someone down and understanding the enemy. That's why Homelander recruited her. That's why she's making the choice. That's why she's recruited people like Firecracker, for instance, who is this Alex Jones-esque character, because of her connection to Starlight, and that's why she picked her. And they go into more detail in the episode itself. But yeah, she definitely has an end game of some sort, and she's playing a lot of these different sides against each other right now. And but yeah, she's also like really funny. Again, it's also cool to see, because for so much of the time, other than maybe Neuman, who is could potentially be the vice president, she's like the only, and even then, she's kind of like still in fear of Homelander. Like, I don't get the sense that Sage is afraid of him, because she knows, like, well, you'll just kill me. So, if I piss you off or too much, or I know your MO, I know how you operate. And so she's like, that's an inevitability. But so I'm going to do what I can for as long as I can. And she kind of breaks down. He needs that. He can't just always just, railroad just everybody. You need that kind of foil for him. You need someone that he can bounce off of, or rub against. And that person will deflect his threats and things. And she does that to a degree. To a great degree, and it's working for me. And she's funny as well in a very sarcastic way. She has a dry sense of humor, which I think really works for her so far. I like her a lot. Smartest person with piss poor social skills, because she's gonna tell you exactly what she thinks. But that's what makes it funny. That's what makes it work. So yeah, she's a breath of fresh air. She's one of the best new characters that I think, of the new characters they introduced to the series so far, she's my favorite new one. I like her quite a bit. Let's see here. A comedian doing fine after being thrown out the way. Oh, he's fine. He's A-okay. Yeah, Firecracker, totally a parody of Alex Jones, QAnon, those all right-wing. I mean, her whole shtick, her whole brand is delivering truth bombs. Firecrackers give you a truth bomb, and it's all the crazy shit you've ever heard before online from those sorts of people and organizations and websites. Let's see here. Oh, and they showed a bit of her power. Oh, with Firecracker, just that. Oh, lad, you didn't like male duplicate? No, oh my God, male duplicate. That's exactly what he is. He is male. Yeah, he's or multiple man. They have some other soups that they show off in the first few episodes. You see this guy who's able to make multiple versions of himself graphic. It's not like, oh, just boop, there's another person. It takes a little while for it's like a weird flesh baby. It's like the person just kind of splits down the middle and the skin's kind of like all tearing and stuff. It's like, oh God, everyone's like, oh, it's so gross. And of course the person has to be naked because they can't duplicate clothes. And so a lot of dick this season, chat. Yeah. So, I mean, The Boys has always had nudity, both female and male nudity. A lot of penises, though. There's definitely, of all the TV shows that I've seen the last few years, The Boys has the most penis, no question. And an episode, I want to say it's episode, I forget if it's episode 2 or episode 3, whichever episode it is. It's definitely not episode 1. But yeah, you see a lot of floppy wieners. A lot of bush, untrimmed, thick bush chat, just going at it. Big fight scene, at a basically the equivalent of a Hilton ballroom. And it was very well done. That's the other thing too I should mention. A lot of the action sequences or chase sequences so far on the show are very good. They're well choreographed. They use their money well. It's not like action every minute, but when they do have it, when they do show it, like it looks great. Both the practical effects and the CGI, it looks very good. I feel like they're using their money wisely, and the special effects I think have been cool. And again, horrifically gross. Horrifically gross. Floppy long weenies. Good for them. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, he's a shower, not a grower. Good for him. A lot of floppy kielbases. Oh, yeah, a ton. You see so many. You see, like, God, at least a dozen in one episode. And they're all together. Yeah. It's fun. That was a fun episode. I like that one quite a bit. But yeah, chat, so far, The Boys Season 4, I think it's off to a very good start. Not without its flaws, of course. I will continue watching this because I am actually really enjoying it. I've been a fan of the show ever since Season 1, and I'll do a full Season 4 review once all the episodes are finally out. And yeah, I'm excited for it, chat, because I still think it's pretty good. And if you've been a fan the past season, I think you really like this. So, yeah. Oh, he's going to grow. That's true. He might be a grower, too, for all we know. Jesus. Oh, my God. Oh, Lord. And he's like such a, because he's obsessed with Firecracker. He's very incel. I mean, yeah. He's just so obsessed with her. She's just thoroughly placed him in the friend zone episode. He's so pathetic. It's like, oh, God, you're so pathetic. A lot of that. I mean, there's always those moments where you cringe, where they have that kind of cringe humor because of that awkwardness, which has always been a part of the Boys' DNA. But I think it's handled like really, really well, and they do a great job with floppy male duplicate man. Pretty amusing. But now, my friends, we're going to move on from my review of The Boys, Season 4, episodes 1 through 3, at least my impressions so far. And we're going to get to Class in a Glass Cast for your ass with a little bit of sass. Let's get to these questions here. And again, in case I missed anyone from before, welcome. I hope you're all doing very, very well. An absolute pleasure to have all you here. Let's see. Let me get my thing out here. Got it. Got a lot of questions for today, which, again, huge thank you to everyone for submitting your questions.